sometimes it's way better to show you what we do instead of just talking about it. So I really like this video because we made it, well, I made it. I asked some of the older kids, I want to do something different this year. I usually just talk about the orphanage and show you where everything is at. But I wanted this year for the kids to be in the video. So I went to the older kids and I was like, okay guys, I want some of you to talk in the video. Who wants to do it? And these 3 kids like just say, I want to do it. So I'm like, okay, perfect. I did not want it to be like an interview kind of thing. So I just told them, I just asked them a question. I was like, I'm going to ask you a question and you can think about it and don't tell me anything and then just say it in the video. So I asked them this question, how has your life changed since you've been here? So you're going to see their answer in that. So I thought it was really cool and I just like for y'all to see what we do in the orphanage. Right now we have 23 kids. It's crazy. I think last year that we went here we had around 13 kids, around 13, 14 kids. Now we have 23. It's crazy and we don't have any more space, so please pray for that. But we are working very hard and in the meantime while we put the video, we can put it now. We also started to have a soup kitchen. I think last year we were here, we were talking about we wanted to start a soup kitchen because a lot of the people in Mexico don't have the money really to eat. Like we don't have Social Security, we don't have any of those government help. Right now the minimum wage in Mexico is $5 a day. So the older people and the handicapped people really cannot work. So we also started a soup kitchen and I'm going to talk about that after the video. But the kids in the orphanage are actually now helping in the soup kitchen whenever they don't have school and whenever they can. So it's really awesome to see how just God is transforming it and building everything together. But I'll let you see the video. Hello everybody, my name is Alma and thank you so much for watching this video of our New Dawning Children's Home. Our mission here at New Dawning is to provide a safe environment for our children to grow up in. Each and every one of them has a story, but now those stories are being rewritten thanks to you. Our mission is to teach them to love God first and to love others in spite of what others have done to them. We teach them about responsibility, and that starts with making their beds every morning, even though that might not be their favorite part. We also teach them that their stories can help others. How has your life changed since you've been here?
Yo estoy contento de estar aquí porque me alcanzó Dios, gracias a Él. Yo de donde vengo del relleno sanitario, yo era drogadicto, me gustaba el alcohol, me gustaba todo, pero gracias a Dios me alcanzó, me conoció. Cada vez que yo me conoció la luz para venir para todos los jóvenes. Eso puede cambiar.
How has your life changed since you've been here?
Cuando yo nací, llegué aquí, ya no soy la misma persona que era antes. Aquí he aprendido la mente, perdón, y he aprendido de Dios. Y pues, ya no me pido nada de lo que venía a mi casa. Bueno, no mi casa, porque yo, bueno, pues estoy muy agradecida con todo lo que me han ayudado aquí, con la comunidad. Ya no soy la misma persona porque pues he aprendido a trabajar, y muchas cosas me han enseñado a meditar, muchos valores que casi no he enseñado, todas las malas palabras y así ha sido diferente.
We couldn't do this alone. Thank you for being a part of their life. Thank you for helping us rewrite their stories. Sometimes you gotta leave your home to find family. And we're so happy they have become ours. How has your life changed since you've been here?
Ha cambiado muchísimo, nos quitaron más, teníamos dinero y la verdad es que todo es así. He sabido que no hay que ser más personas, que todos estamos.
Behind those smiles hides a terrible past. We are thankful that thanks to you, Their stories are not going to end up like many others in the papers, with terrible titles about how their lives were taken too soon because of the conditions they were living in. Now they have the chance at a better future. Now they have the opportunity of changing their story. We believe that we are raising the next teachers, the next engineers, the next doctors, and even the next leaders of our country. But also, we are raising the next moms and the next dads. And they will break the pattern of abuse in their homes. You are a part of that change. You are a part of that difference.
Sometimes you gotta leave your home to bring it down. You want to sponsor one of us? I'll leave the link so you can go to our website and learn more about us. Thank you so much for everything, guys. Thank you so much for your prayers. Thank you so much for your support. We love you.
Yes.
Those are our kids. We're really happy that you guys are actually a part of it. Thank you so much for being a part of their story, for being a part of their change. We really appreciate it. Like I was saying, we have that ministry and we have the soup kitchen. We started feeding the elderly. We opened on Christmas Day. We were able to open on Christmas Day. We started feeding on Christmas Day around 25 people or so, I think. Right now we're under 100. So it's like 97, 98 people that we're serving 3 days a week, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and on Fridays. Please pray for that. It's hard sometimes because we don't have a lot of volunteers because most people have to work to make a living. So it's hard sometimes, but we are doing it and it's going amazing. We feed the handicapped, the elderly, like I was saying, and just to tell you a few of the stories, a few of the people we serve. We have one lady that literally her house is infested with bats. She has bats in her house. She's very old. She actually has children, but the children are already working. They're, I guess, the professionals are working somewhere, and they just forget about her. Actually, the house she's living in, they already sold it, and they're just waiting for her to die so they can take it and for somebody else. They don't visit her. She pretty much lives alone all the time. And whenever we started feeding, giving her food, she did not even open the door for us. She would open a window. So she was very, I guess, afraid. She did not trust anybody. So she would open a window, but we would say hi, and we would give her the food, and that was great. And then we could see that little by little she started changing that. Now she opens the window for us, the door for us. She says hi. You see her outside cleaning. Before we just used to see her like inside her house. She would never go out. Now she's outside and she's cleaning, and you can see her. There's a difference in her. Something changed in her. So we're so happy that we're able to be a blessing to her and many others. We have other people that actually have been healed. They ask us always to go pray for them whenever we deliver the food. So they have been healed. Some of them now come to our church. So it's amazing just how God is using this ministry and the excuse in a way of bringing them food as a way of ministering to them. So it's just amazing, and the kids also help in that. So we're just so thankful and so blessed to be a part of all this that God is doing and that you guys are a part of it. So we love you.
Again, we're happy to be here today, and it's always a joy for us to come here to this church. And we travel throughout the United States. In fact, this trip will be gone for nearly 2 months by the time we get home. And that means we're in at least 3 churches a week, and sometimes some weeks even more than that. But there's nothing like coming home, amen? And coming home to mom. There's something different when you come home to mom's house. And we're happy to be here. And we honor her today and for the work that she's doing here. And we want to thank you all for being a part of what we're doing in Mexico. And this has been a tremendous year. It's been a very busy year for us. And we've had to add more staff because it's just the ministry is growing. And we were having a hard time getting everything done. And even with Alma on staff full time, it was just very hard getting things done. So we added more staff. And she travels with me pretty much everywhere I go. And even now she travels some on her own. And that's kind of a joy to see how she's beginning to develop into her own. And she travels now. Sometimes I don't even get to go. I just got to stay home. And but we're so happy for what God's doing in her life and things. And again, to come here and share with you about what God is doing in the different areas of ministry in Mexico. Of course, we talk more about the orphanage because that's one thing that is really dear to our hearts. And we love the kids like they were our own. And even Alma, most of the kids call her mom. And 21 years old, and she got 23 kids that call her mom. But anyway, we love them like they were our own. So it's kind of difficult when we leave for such a long period of time that we miss them. And even though we can FaceTime them and talk to them on the phone, it's not like being there. And there was one time this summer we went to California. On a trip to California, a day or two after we left home, they called us and said they had 2 girls that they wanted to know if we'd take them in. And we said yes. And they came and was a part of the orphanage there. Before we got back, the thing in the situation in their lives had changed. And by the time we got back, they were already gone. So we had 2 girls in the orphanage this year that we didn't even get a chance to meet. They were just in there for about a month. And but anyway, we surely miss them back home. But some of the other areas I'll talk about first that we're working at in ministry, of course, you know that we have a fellowship of churches, and Brother Bernardo, who normally travels with me as well, he wanted to be here today. He tried to be here today, but when we got to the border to get our visa, or his visa, to come into the United States, they denied it because they said that we were making plans on working our way to a convention, and they said that the trip we were starting way ahead, too much ahead of the convention, and we tried to explain to them that we were going to be stopping in many churches on our way to the convention, and for some reason they just didn't understand, they didn't want to understand, and so they denied him his visa, and he was very, very saddened that he couldn't come, and he told me to be sure to tell you today that he sends his greetings and his love and how much he wished he could have been here. But if you knew Brother Bernardo, some of you know him, the DVICs know him very well, and the pastor knows him very well. But he is kind of, I guess you said, Alma, my right-hand person, I guess he would be the left-hand person, because he does literally almost everything that we need him to do. And he's pastoring a wonderful church in the city of Victoria that's growing. He's almost out of space in his church. He's grown to a place that they've knocked down so many walls that there's no more walls that they can knock down. And he's now building outside the church, in a patio area behind the church. They knocked another wall down that left open a patio area behind there that they can seat another probably 30 people back there. And now they're working on trying to fill that up. So you can imagine how busy he is. And then this year, after we were here last year, one of our pastors had passed away. I don't know if you remember Brother Pedro. Bruce Pedro? He had been sick for a long period of time, and he passed away this year and went home to be with the Lord. And we had a church then that was needing a pastor, and because of his long illness, the church had gone down to almost nothing. And Brother Bernardo said he would take that on. He took it, so now he's pastoring 2 churches for us, and the second church. Well, he's in church almost every night of the week. I think there's one night of the week that he doesn't have any church service. I don't know what he does that night, but every other night of the week he's busy in church and things, and that church is growing. He's doing a tremendous job in that church. And then our resident college is in his church as well. And so besides the office of the 2 pastors that he has, besides the Bible college that he is now helping to oversee, now this year we elected him as our president of our Mexican fellowship. And so you can imagine that he stays as busy as we do in all the different areas that he's working at in ministry. But we thank God for men of God like Brother Bernardo and doing the job that he's doing. He's just doing a tremendous job in Mexico. You remember Sister Dominguez. Sister Dominguez, first her husband, has started church. He worked back with my dad back in the late 60s, early 70s. They worked together. Brother Dominguez passed away, I don't remember what year, it's a long time ago. And Sister Dominguez was still alive for many years. And after Brother Dominguez passed away, their son, Osiel, had had fallen away from serving the Lord. He was not serving the Lord, and every time we would go back to visit that church in San Rafael, we would go back there, and I kept telling him that there was a call of God upon his life, and he would look at me, he said, yeah, I know, but, and that's the only thing he would ever tell me is, I know, but, and he was running from God, and he didn't want to have anything really to do with God at that time, and I just kept telling him that God has a call of God upon his life. I remember a few years ago, we were doing a ministers conference in Padilla, at the church there in Padilla, and Brother Jenkins was there, and he was speaking, and because Brother Osiel had to bring his mom to the service there in Padilla, he was there as well, and he tried to stay out in the truck as long as he could, and I know we went a little long maybe, and he got tired and came in to see what was going on. And we were still in service, and he walked in the building, and he had a 9mm pistol stuck in the back of the belt, and he walked in the building, had a cowboy hat on like he does, and sat in the back row, and sat there and listened to the Word of God being preached. And he couldn't get away from it then, and he got Brother Jenkins was preaching, and I remember when we made the altar call that day, I remember he took that 9mm pistol out, stuck it on the bench, covered it up with his cowboy hat, and walked down to the altar and gave his heart to the Lord. Hallelujah. Today he's doing a tremendous job for the ministry and for fellowship there in Mexico, and we thank God for what he's doing. And like him, I can talk to you about many other ministers that we have. I told you about Santiago went to be with the Lord a little over a year ago, and the ministry that he had both legs amputated, and that never stopped him. He kept going and kept preaching and kept raising up works in Mexico, and he was such an inspiration to me, and realized that even though I kind of hobble around a little bit, I never have gone through everything that he's gone through, and yet he remained faithful to the work of God and what he was called to do. And today his daughter now is pastoring those two churches for us in Mexico and doing a tremendous job, and so we thank God for what he's doing, and that really, I really appreciate that, because I'm a second-generation missionary, and to see that some of the kids now are coming along, and even though the older ones have gone on to be with the Lord, that some of their kids now are coming along and working in ministry, and I thank God for that, and that the lives that their parents had lived before them, in such a way that when the time came that they had to make a decision what they were going to do, that they stepped up and they said, I'll take on the ministry and take on the pastor of those churches. And so we thank God for what he's doing. This year we had a couple call us from, a gentleman first called us from Georgia, and he said, I have a pastor in Mexico City that is looking for legal covering. And he said, I want to know if you would be interested in giving them legal covering. And I said, sure we would. And so now we're working on the paperwork now that for a church and pastors to come into the fellowship from way down in Mexico City. And so the fellowship is extending farther out, and we're thankful to God. How did they know about us? I have no idea. But the word is getting out of what God is doing there in the work, and we thank God for that. Our Mexican attorney, I was with him earlier this year. He's also from Mexico City, and I went down there for a couple of days to sit in his office, and the thing about our Mexican attorney is he's very, very good friends with our Mexican president. And if you look on YouTube, if I just give you his name, you would see him, I don't know how many articles you'll find with his name on there, where he's actually with the Mexican president of Mexico, and they're working on a lot of things. The Mexican president appointed him as the church, liaison, or whatever you want to call it, that between the church and the state. And he's trying to get some things worked out where the church has a lot more importance in Mexico than it has ever before. If there was ever a time in Mexico that God's doing something in the church, it's today. And we thank God for that. He's working on a thing right now where he's trying to make it possible for a church now, or a religious organization now, to own a radio station or a television station in Mexico. And that's quite an undertaking, because never before in the history of Mexico was it legal for a church or a religious organization to own any one of the, not the press, not the radio stations or the TV stations, and they're working on it and coming close to a deal right now where they can get that done. And another thing that he's working on is that he's trying to make it possible where a pastor now can be a political candidate and hold a political office. Amen. That has never happened before in the history of Mexico. And the Catholic Church is fighting that because they see that our Mexican president is leaning real heavily towards the Christian church, and the Catholic Church is coming against that real heavily, but they're plowing through, and they're going to get it done. And we thank God for it. But he is part of our fellowship. Not only is he my attorney, but he is also part of our fellowship. He is registered. He's a vice president of our Mexican fellowship. And so we thank God for the men of God that God has called to be with us and work with us in the fellowship there in Mexico. We just had our Mexican Ministers Convention there in Bernardo's church, Brother Bernardo's church. Had a tremendous turnout. We had probably 150 people in attendance in our Mexican Ministers Convention. And so we're excited about what God is doing there. Of course, the other area, one of the areas that we're working at is in the Bible College. Bible College is doing wonderful. I had a meeting yesterday with Pastor and Sister Toy and showing them what we're doing in the Bible College. And we're so excited about what God is doing in the area of the Bible College and the prospects of what's going to happen in the next few years. Of course, we have our resident college there in Victoria, where we have Brother Bernardo is helping with that, and we have, I think, 15 resident students right now in our Bible college there in Victoria. But a few years ago, God began to put it up on my heart to start an online Bible college. And I had some problems with that at first because I didn't want them, because I've seen how it has worked before in the past in some Bible colleges, where if you just send them a syllabus, and they can kind of read through that syllabus really quick and get to the end of the syllabus, hurry up and answer the questions, and then they took the course. And really, they didn't know a whole lot more when they finished the course than when they started the course. And so I really didn't want to go that route. I was trying to find a way where it would be almost as if they had to attend class. And so we came up with the idea of having an online video Bible college, and we started that. And I nearly, when I was here last year, I think I shared it with you, but I nearly had this all put together after putting hundreds of hours in getting this done, getting our website up and getting it running, and getting our courses online, and starting to get videos online on our website. And we just almost had it done. And about a month before I was here last year, a friend of my brother's, where my brother has a tech company, and all of our servers are at his place of business. And one of his guys that came in to help them do some work on some of the servers got into our server that we have our college on and did something and downloaded something, and along with that came a virus that wiped everything out that we had done. Hallelujah. And we looked at that, and when I was here last year, we had nothing. We had zero. And I looked at that. I knew when I went back from here last year that I was going to have to try to get that back together. And we worked hard again this year and put literally hundreds of hours in getting this together. And I'm happy to tell you today that our website is back up, it's functioning. Now they can take our online courses. And I showed one particular course to our pastor yesterday and showed how it works. And they can actually even take the test online if they so desire. And we can assign a grade value to each question in the quiz. And it'll grade it for them. It takes all that work away from us. We don't have to grade any papers. We don't have to, the website itself will do all that for us. And they just email me when it's all done and said that this student had taken that course and they got that grade. And then we have to keep records of that, of course. But it's doing well, and we're excited about that. And we're beginning to promote it some. And I just came through a church in Texas that had a Bible college in their church, and I talked to them, and they said, "Well, we had a Bible college in our church. We have some students that want to go to Bible college, but we don't have enough students that we really want to undertake another full-blown college." And they asked us if we would be the ones that would go in, and they would attend. Their people would actually attend our college online and be a part of our college and get the education that they want through us. And so we're excited that now churches are beginning to open up to us, and they're not big enough to have a staff big enough. They don't have the resources to do it, and so they're coming to us now and asking us if we will be their Bible college for their church. We had a Baptist church in San Antonio that recently did the same thing. They said we want to train some of our leaders up. We don't have anything really. The Baptists, they have their own Bible college, but they don't want to go away to study in a Bible college, which our college allows them to stay home, stay on their jobs, stay with their families, stay in the ministry, and still be able to go to Bible college. And so they've asked us, a Baptist church asked us if we would be now their Bible college. And so we're excited about that. I explained to them where maybe a little bit Pentecostal, and they said that was all right. But we're so excited about what God is doing in the area of Bible college. And pray with us as we go back, that God will help us to get those things going, and that it'll begin to grow. And I hope to report next year when we're here that we have hundreds of students enrolled in our Bible college. And I believe that we have the potential of doing that in the name of Jesus. Our building, I think I talked to you about our building that was broken into when we were up here a couple years ago. They went in our big building where we had a Bible school in Padilla, and literally stole everything out of it up to the wiring that was in the wall. And we had just put in 2 brand new 2-ton units, air conditioners, brand new. And one of them we had fired up a couple of times, the other one we had not fired up at all yet. And they came in and took all of it. And I don't know how long the time they took to get it all out, but they took some of our sound equipment, they took some of our just office equipment, they took about everything. And so we were left without a place to have church, and we were left without a home place for our Bible college. And this next year we're praying and believing God that we can go back in and start rebuilding that. And one of the things we want to do there is we want to put in an audio-video suite where we can actually videotape a lot of our Bible college courses and put them online, or even go live there. And so we're excited about that. Pray with us as we go back, that God will help us to do that. And I think this church, because you're a part of that, because we are associated or chartered with Shalom Bible College, and we're proud of that fact. And so we want to thank this church and this ministry for working with us in that endeavor. Of course, one of the other areas, of course, is the orphanage. Things are going good at the orphanage. Alma had already mentioned that we have 23 kids now in the orphanage. And like Alma said, that's really a handful. And as we're a Christian orphanage, but what you may not understand is that just because they come to us doesn't mean that miraculously one day to the next that they're just a little saint. That when we get them with all their problems, and we get them with all their the baggage that comes along with everything that they've gone through. And one boy that was on the video, that William, that talked about came up through the city dump, and that he had been on drugs and he had been on light alcohol, and when we got him, that's the way we got him. And I'm a little bit naive. I've had to learn a few things along the way. And one of the things I had to learn was when he came to us, we were finishing up the kitchen part of the ministry there, and we had bought some oil-based paints to paint the windows frames with, and we didn't finish up one night, so we let that oil-based paint out in the kitchen. We covered it up, of course, and left that out in the kitchen, and I had no idea. But the next morning when we went out there to finish painting the windows, the paint was gone. And I said, now what could have happened to all that paint? We had a half a gallon of paint left that we hadn't used. I couldn't figure out what had happened to that paint, or who had. And come to find out, our young William had found the paint, and he found a way that he could sniff that paint and put it, I don't know how he did. He made some kind of thing out of a can, and use that. Somehow he used that. And he was sniffing paint, and they found him off in the corner somewhere. His eyes all bloodshot and just a mess. And so you see, when we get them, they're not just automatically transformed and now they're a Christian and devoted to God and everything. That's the condition we get our kids in. We're happy to report that now he's overcome those habits. He no longer is sniffing paint, and this has been a really good year for him. He went to a youth camp early this summer, and baptized in the Holy Spirit.
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
We baptized in the Holy Spirit, spoke in tongues while he was at youth camp, and transformed his life, just totally transformed his life. And he quit drinking, he quit doing the sniffing, he quit doing drugs, and he was doing his best to serve God with all his heart.
We have another girl that came to us this year. Her name was Carla. Carla, when she came to us, when the state asked us if we would take her, they didn't give us a lot of information on her. When we got her, when they came to bring her out to us, we found out that Carla, she was 13 years old, and Carla had already had a little baby girl. She had just a month or two prior to that, her coming to us, had given birth to a baby girl. And she had been raped, and as a result of the rape, and she had been molested, and as a result of that, she became pregnant, had the baby girl, and somebody had reported it. The state went, picked her up, and took her. And what we didn't know at the time was the state took the baby from her. And they had already had an adoption worked out, and the state, they could make money off those adoptions. And they had already had a deal worked out where they were adopt the baby. But to make it legal, they had to have her permission. So they came out one day after they brought her to us, and they came out one day, and they said they needed to talk to her, and they wouldn't let us in there to talk, be there and listen in on what they were talking about. But they began to talk to her, and they tried to get her to give her baby up for adoption and sign the papers. She refused. Yet you have to understand, even though that was a rape, that she still got that baby. And that was still her little baby girl, and she didn't want to give that baby up for adoption. And so she wouldn't do that. She wouldn't sign the papers. And so they tricked her, and they were videotaping her, and they had one guy behind the scenes that kept saying, say yes, say yes, say yes. And she finally got confused, didn't know what was going on, and she said yes. And when she did that, she had just given up all of her rights to her baby. As you can imagine, that was very devastating to her. And for the next, even up till we left home, there's times that she just goes and just sobs and sobs and sobs when she thinks about her baby. And so you can imagine the things that we go through when we deal with these kids and the problems that we have, and try to get them to healed up over the situations that they've been through. We had another boy that when he came to us, he had been through a domestic situation where his family, there's a lot of violence in his family. His dad was real violent and beat them. Him and his two brothers, quite severely. And when he came to us, he was very aggressive to the other kids there, because that's all he knew. Every time he would get mad, he would grab one of them by the throat. He said, "I'm going to kill you." And that's all he knew. That's the way he was grown up, and that's all he knew. And so when he came to us, that's what he. But thank God today, little by little, that we've learned how to work with him and things. And now it's been a long, long time since we've heard him use those words and grab somebody by the neck. He gets mad once in a while still, but we have learned how to deal with him when he gets mad and not let it escalate to the point that he did when he was. But what I'm trying to say is, after they're with us a period of time, we can see how God is working on their behalf, and God is changing their lives and transforming their lives. And his brother, I think maybe last year I shared to you about the little boy, and when he came to us, I took him to church one Sunday morning. The first Sunday morning he was with us, and he walked into church and gave one of the ladies in the church the finger. And this brother that is violent, he was the brother of this little boy. And I'm happy to say that Jefferson now he hadn't had a problem with his finger now for a long, long time. And he's doing very good and doing good in school. And we thank God. Also, on a side note, they're all doing well in school. The boy that was up on the video, he had not been in school for a long time, and he actually, people told him that he couldn't do anything. I mean, they thought he'd come as far along as they possibly could in school. And we said, no, he has to go to school. Excuse me, we have him in a special program in school, and he's getting, not all 10s, but he's getting a lot of 10s in school. And so we thank God for what they're doing and how God is transforming our lives. One of the things we've done this year, of course, I told you all of our websites was wiped out last year. This spring, I started working on the Orphanage website, and because I think it's a real nice way to let people know what's going on in the orphanage even throughout the year. And so I began to work on that. And one thing that I wanted to do was make it possible so that if you wanted to have contact with one of our kids, that there was a way now that you could do that. And in the website, if you go to our website, up at the top, there's a little menu that says Meet the Kids. And you can click on that, and the menu will drop down. And, well, I think they'll take you right directly to the kids page. And there you can see each one of the kids individually on the website. And now, one thing that we've done different is that if you kind of hover over the kid's picture, there's a little thing that comes up, and you can click on that, and then it'll take you, a little thing will pop up, and it'll allow you, there's a thing at the bottom that says, send email. And so now, you can now send each one of our kids an email. Every one of them has their own email address, and even Kike, the littlest one, that's what, 4 now? Yeah, 4. He has his own email address, and so if you want to, and they know that's working now, and they're looking forward to people contacting them by email, and I think it would be a wonderful thing. Now, we don't want to become overwhelmed with emails, and because we'll have to put somebody in charge of translating them and reading them to them and then responding back to them, and but we are excited about the fact that lets them know that there's somebody outside of, even the orphanage that cares about them and thinks enough about them that they would, and even some of the young people, I think it'd be really neat if some of the young people would be like pen pals to some of our kids at the orphanage, and you can learn about their stories and what they've been through, how God's worked in their lives and things, and so that is a new part of our website that we have going on. And we'll make sure that they get it. If you send one, we'll make sure that they get it and they get it read to them. And then we'll make sure that they respond back to you. And it may take a little while, especially if you did it this week, it may take a while for me to respond back because I'm not going to be home yet for another month or so. And then, so if you send one out right away and you don't get word back right away, don't feel offended. It's just that I haven't got home yet to take care of that. But I think it'd be really nice that for the kids and also for the people here, that they can have contact with the kids there and learn a lot more about their stories and what's going on in their lives on a regular basis. And so pray with us. One of the things I want to share with you about the children's home too, early this summer, the state came to us and asked us if we would be willing to take in kids that were not Mexicans. And I wonder what they were talking about. And they said, well, because of the border crisis that's going on right now still, that's much of the kids that were trying to get into the U.S., that now the Mexican government is working along with President Trump, and they are stopping the people from getting into the U.S. Before they get to the border, the Mexican government is now stopping them, not allowing them to get close to the U.S. border so they can make their way into the U.S. But what that's done now is that the people that promised them entry into the U.S. are no longer able to fulfill that commitment. And so they're abandoning all these kids in the, right around the Mexican border. And the state, and we border the state of Texas, the state of Tamaulipas, which is where we live at, borders the Texas border. And so we're right there in the midst of where all that's going on. And the government said they have literally thousands of kids that have been left and abandoned in Mexico, that they have no idea how to get them back to their homes. The parents have either sold them, given them away, or some of them have even been given the promise that we'll take your kids from you, we'll get them into the U.S. Once they're made American citizens, then we'll come back and make it possible for you to come into the U.S. and become a citizen. And so that's what the promise, of course that hasn't happened now, and with everything that's gone on at the border, and they've been turned back, and many of those kids have been abandoned in Mexico. And the government, like I said, they came to us and asked us what we could do to help out with the situation. And I said, well, I'll have to pray about it, or I'll have to talk to our sponsors and see what the possibilities of doing something. One thing is, now we don't have enough room at the orphanage to take any more kids in. We're actually even a little bit beyond, we're set for 20, we have 23 kids in there right now. And so we really don't have the space to take in any more kids. And we would have to raise more support as well. If we were to take in more kids, we'd have to have more staff there to help take care of them. But if it's God's will, I believe that He'll supply that. And so I began to put some things together and begin to look and talk to some contractors and try to figure out what it would cost to build on to our orphanage. And make enough room for at least 30 more kids at the orphanage. That puts us up around 50. And I can't imagine 50 kids running around calling Alma mom. And anyway, that puts us up about 50. And the cost of doing that, just the cost of putting that together, that building together, is about $35,000 to do that building. That includes restrooms, because each dorm has to have by law their own restroom. They can't have like a community restroom where 2 or 3 dorm rooms can use one bathroom. Each dorm has to have their own bathroom. So that includes all the bathrooms, the tile work, that includes everything, except maybe the bunk beds. I think I can get the state to come up with the bunk beds. And I know that sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. And but I just believe that if it's God's will, if He's wanting us to do this, that somehow He'll talk to people and money will come in, and we'll get the job done just like we've done every other time. I was reminded earlier today that in April of this year, we were going through a very dry time financially, and it seemed like we were going just day by day and trying to keep things, bills paid and things. And we were getting the bills paid, and everybody was eating and everything was okay, but it was just real stressful time, and we were getting by just day by day. And finally, I think the staff was tired of me telling them that they had to watch the money, and it was about every day. I said, well, is this really necessary? Do we have to have it today? Can we buy it later on? And so I think they were getting tired of me saying all that. And one Sunday morning, I was sitting in praise and worship in our church in Padilla, and I said, God, I've got to have some help. And really, that's all I said. We were praying, it was a praise and worship person, I just worshiping God, and I said, God, I really need some relief, I need some help. And church service went on, and I preached that morning, and on Sundays, like I do a lot of times in Padilla, when church is over with, I go home, and I kind of hibernate the rest of the day. Because during the day, during the week, we have no time that we can just get away and relax. And so a lot of times on Sunday, I would go to my room and just kind of hibernate. And I went to my room that Sunday, and I was just kind of, I think I was watching a video of somebody else that was preaching on live, Facebook Live. I was watching somebody else preaching, and the phone rang. And a person I answered the phone, and it was a person I knew, and she said, I got something I want to tell you. And I said, what's that? Now, this is a person that has never, ever gave one penny to the ministry, ever. People that I love, I appreciate them, they love me and appreciate me, but they have never sponsored anything, they have never done anything in the ministry, ever. And she tells me, she said, well, I was sitting in church this morning during praise and worship, and told me the time. She said, my husband looks at me and he said, God just spoke to me and said, I got to send Brother Greg some money. And it was the same time I was at church, the exact same time I was at church telling God I need some help. And God tells him that never sponsored anything I have ever done in ministry, and tells him to send me money. They called me that day and through their credit card donated $500 that day. And that got us over the hump and kind of broke that cycle, or broke that whatever you want to call it, that had our finances tied up and money beginning to flow again, and we thank God for that. But I said all that to say that it doesn't matter if God is in it, it doesn't matter what the need is, how much the need is, that God will find somebody to make that come to pass. And I was so encouraged, and of course we did what we needed to do, and things went on. And I believe the same thing with this, that $35,000 is a lot of money, and I have another bigger project that I want to do next year, and it's a lot of money. But I do know this, that God is in this, and I know that if He's in it, that He's going to make it happen. And I don't care if He does it with one person or He does it with many people, that He can make it happen. So pray with us as we go back, that God will help us to get that done. And I pray that by springtime that we'll have the new building done, and that we'll be able to start taking in some new kids, and more staff, and more groceries, and more everything that's going to require. But pray with us about those things. We talked about the kitchen. Last year when I was here, we wasn't even doing the kitchen. I had God begin to deal with me about the kitchen, and I had already knew that there was a need for it, because some people, we had talked about a little bit, about the elderly people in our town that were being neglected, and many of them are like in their 80s and 90s,
and have absolutely nobody that is caring for them whatsoever. And some of them, to survive, they go to their neighbors or whatever and knock on the door and beg them for food to be able to survive. And so I was kind of aware of the situation, and I was finishing up another project that I was working on. I don't know if you remember, we were putting up a security fence around the property. And as we were putting up the security fence around the property, which the fence goes about 20 feet behind my house where I live. And I was sitting there watching overseeing the construction, and sitting there watching the block layers lay the block. And the block on that fence was already up about 6 foot tall. And they were getting almost done with that. And God began to speak to my heart, and I began to look at that, and I could visualize it almost immediately in my mind, that if I would raise that wall up another so many feet, and all I would have to do, because my house was on one end, the fence was on the other end, and all I would have to do is just put in 2 walls, one on each side, and put a roof on it, and I would have another room that I could use. And it would, I was finishing up that project anyway, and God began to show me that if I did this, I would have a place that I could use for the kitchen. And so I got around, I was calling around about it, trying to get some pricing together and things, and a friend of mine called me from Georgia, and he, as he does quite often, he says, "What's going on now? What are you working on now?" And I told him, I said, "We have it already there." And he said, "What's that going to cost?" And I said, "It's about $800. He said, "Now he just sent me the $3,500, and we're working on that, getting the roof on." And he said, "I'll send you a check, go ahead and get that done too." So we got that done. We got the roof up, and we got the floor in. And then we came on this trip last year, and when I was in the church last year, I began to share about the kitchen, and I needed $10,000 more to finish that up. And I began to share it around, and everywhere we've been, I got home, and I didn't have any money raised for finishing the kitchen. But as I was traveling, telling about the kitchen, somewhere along the line, it just came out. I don't know, it just kind of blurted out of me. I said, "We want to have this done at the latest and open up at the latest by Christmas Day." Now, when I get home, it's already the 1st of November, and I need $10,000, and I don't have any money. And I've already told people I want to open by Christmas Day. And I know when God's in it, He'll make it happen. I got home, and the same gentleman, he calls me up and he said, "I know you're home now, what's next?" And I said, "Well, we got to plaster the walls." To make a long story short, he by himself, he took care of that entire project. Brand new appliance, I mean down to the appliances, brand new appliances. And we got into the buying the tile for the floor. And I had picked out the tile for the floor that we were going to use. And I try to build things that are nice, that speak highly of what we're doing, but yet I try to do things as cheap as I can, because I think that I'm responsible to the people that support our ministry, that I should do the best with the money that they send me. And so I had already picked out some tile, and it would have been nice. And the day we went to buy the tile, we showed up, and they said, "We don't have enough of that tile. What you need?" Because the building is 20 by 40, and they didn't have enough tile to be what we needed, the one that I had picked out. So we looked at something else, and they said, "We don't have enough of that either." And they looked at something else, and we don't have enough of that either. And I finally said to him, I said, "What do you have enough of?" The only thing that they had enough of was the most expensive tile they had in the store. Because nobody was paying that price for that tile. And it was over twice the amount of money that I was paying for the tile that I had picked out. Which meant for me that was going to be about $500 more than I would have to come up with to pay for the tile, the difference in what I had already raised and what it was going to cost. And because it was so close to the time that I needed to open up, I said, "We'll take it," and paid for it, and walked out. I was kicking myself all the way home. I said, "You overspent. You spent $500 more for the tile than what you were supposed to spend. Now some of the other stuff that you need to get done, it's not going to get done because you overspent on the tile." And I'm sitting there kicking myself all the way home and just chewing myself out all the way home, because now I don't have enough money to get the rest of it done. And I wasn't going to go back to the man that had already paid for it and tell him I need some more money to pay for it again. And so I'm just kind of going through this all the way home. And the next day, somebody said, God told me to send you another $500. And sent the next day, the money came in without even asking for it. The money came in to meet the rest of that. And so we have beautiful, one of the things everybody remarks on, marble floors, tiled marble floors throughout that kitchen. And everybody, that's one of the first things they remark on is the beautiful tile floor that we have in that place. What we didn't count on when we built this, we assumed, or I assumed, that most of the people that we would be feeding would come there and eat with us there in the kitchen. Got a beautiful dining hall, but what we didn't really consider was that most of them couldn't make it to us. Some of them are amputees. Some of them just because of their age that they just couldn't possibly walk that distance to get to where we are. And if you remember, the orphanage is kind of on the edge of town, way on the edge of town. And it just wasn't possible. We thought about, well, we could transport them and bring them in and then take them home. And it was going to work out just better if we just delivered the food to them. And so now, today, most of the food that we serve, we are delivering to them. The kitchen, of course, we use it for a lot of different uses. The church uses it quite a bit. The orphanage uses it quite a bit for meals and things. And so it's being used anyway. But we didn't count on having to go to their homes. And if you would go with us on any given day to serve the people, you just can't help but do that without touching your heart. I mean, we've been doing it now for almost a year. And still today, every time we pull up to somebody's house, it just touches your heart just to see the kind of conditions that they're living in. And the government's not doing anything to help them. I mean, one home we went to didn't have a roof on it. It was in wintertime and it was raining. And absolutely did not have a roof on it. Here's Alma. We went in there. Alma said it almost before I could say it. Somebody said, Dad, we got to do something. And so between her and I, we raised the money to put a roof on that house. And she now has she's a blind lady and has her family there, her kids there. Now they have a beautiful roof on their house. Anyway, the conditions that they live in, some of them have just one leg, some of them have, one lady we went to, when she came to us, the doctor sent her home to die. Her body was swelling all the way up, and her arms were about this big around, and her just retaining water, and to the degree that literally from her legs, that water was just dripping from her legs, just drip, 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 drip. And everything was swelled up so much all over her body that the doctor just sent her home to die. They said, well, there's nothing we can do for you. They just tried to give her some medication to help her get through it. And they just said, just go home and die. Well, that was about the time we started serving them. And she said, will you come in and pray for me? And we said we would, and so we went and prayed for her. And it just took about 2 days, and she showed up at church. And she said, I want to testify. You can hardly recognize her now, because in those 2 days after we prayed for her, all the swelling went down, all the water retention was gone, and all the pain was gone that she was in. And now she was totally healed by the power of God, and the doctors can't believe it. They said it's just a miracle. There's no other way to explain it. It's just a miracle that God does something in her life. And so she was healed, still part of the church today, her and her husband and another lady friend of hers that we serve as well, and come to church. And there's many other cases just like that case that they come in and ask us to pray for them. And one lady had ulcers on her leg. They wanted to remove her leg. And she said, will you pray? We prayed, and God dried up those ulcers on her leg, and now she has no longer need for them to amputate her leg. And I can go on and on and on about the stories of people that have been healed and touched by the power of God as a result of the ministry of the kitchen. It's like Alma said, we're happy that we're able to feed them. I mean, we're ecstatic about that fact. But even more than that, we're happy that it opens a door for us to be able to go into their homes and present it. You know what? If you're meeting a need, if they have a need and you're meeting that need, that just opens the door wide open. That they're going to sit and listen to you, or maybe before that they would never listen to you, but they're going to sit and listen to you now when you have something to say, because you're doing them that favor of helping them with their meals. And so we've been in many homes and prayed for many people on a daily basis, and we're excited about that. And today, 9 months later, some of the people that we began serving in the beginning have now gone on and they're passed away. But the neat thing about that is every one of them that has passed away, we had an opportunity to share Jesus with them. And every one of them today are in heaven. Hallelujah. Every one of them today are in heaven. And we had no idea when we started that the impact that would make. But those people that were at the very, very end of their life, just months from going on, and had we not been there, maybe they would never have given their heart to Jesus Christ. And maybe today they would be in heaven with Jesus. And so as a result of that, what God is doing, they made heaven their home. And we're so excited about that. And not excited about the fact that they went home, but we're excited about the fact that they're home with Jesus. And anyway, so pray with us as we go back, that God will continue to meet the needs. One of the neat things about the kitchen too is that when we first started, we started it in Christmas Day last year. And we had a lot of people come out that day because we invited people, we invited the police, we invited mayor, we invited people from government to come out and be with us during the open set ceremonies and people in the church and things. So the first day there was a lot of people there. And but when we really opened up the next day, that the people that we were going to serve came, there was only about 20, just over 20 people that showed up. And when we were serving those 20-some people, because we kept good tabs on what it was costing us, it was costing us right at, not quite, but right at $50 a meal every day that we served. It was costing us about $50. We have added, over this period of 9 months, we've added 3 or 4, 2, 5, almost every week there's at least 1 or 2 people that we've added to the list of people that we're serving now in the kitchen. And today, it's still costing us just $50 to $60 a meal every time now we're serving 3 times as many people for almost the same amount of money, or maybe just a little bit more money. We're serving 75 more people with that. How does that happen? I have no idea. It's kind of like the fishes and loaves story, I think. And because I have not raised any more money for that kitchen than I have not put any pleas out. I have not had anybody come in and I want to sponsor the kitchen. I have not had anything like that ever happen. And yet, between God, the money being there for what we are doing, and then multiplying the food that we are serving, there's been a meal yet that we have not served meat. And it's either beef or, I think, liver. I don't like liver myself, but they do. And chicken, we serve a lot of chicken. And that chef we have, he knows how to fish chicken more ways than you can imagine. As a matter of fact, it was 6 months before he repeated one plate. We kept track of it. We want to know how long it would take him before he would have to repeat a plate. And we literally were serving food 6 months before he repeated a plate. Every time he was something new he came up with that he was serving. And he had worked in many restaurants throughout Mexico. Literally, I'm not just saying, he's a chef just because he's a good cook. He's a chef, a literal chef, and working for us full time. And of course, that has a downside to it because I have my own personal chef now. And I tell him, I said, now just serve me a little bit of food. And you'd have to see it for yourself. It didn't happen that way. And the nice guy that I am, I don't want to offend him, so I just go ahead and eat it. So anyway, pray with us as we go back, with those that are in ministry. Again, lastly, we have the radio station, the internet radio station that's going 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we got good programming on it, preaching and singing and things. And we're excited about that. People are contacting us literally from all over the world, telling us about the radio station. I don't know how word is getting out, but it's getting out. And well, Spanish-speaking places, of course, but any place that's speaking Spanish has contacted us from time to time and said, we're listening to your radio station. And so what a tool. A little town like Padilla, that we can come up with a tool that can reach the world with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so we're excited about that and pray with us about that. Again, I want to say thank you so much for all your prayers and your support. like I said, this church is one that supports us very, very nicely. And we are so grateful. We know that when you give, we know that's not out of abundance many times. And we believe probably sometimes it's out of sacrifice that you give. But we want you to know that what you do is making an impact in lives in Mexico. Like Alma said, that the kids, the change in their lives. Who would have known that something? In fact, let me just show. I'm going to keep going. I'm like most preachers. I got 2 or 3 times I close before I actually close. But anyway, we have one gentleman that we came across this summer. That back in the late 80s, 87, 88, somewhere in there, he had come to the orphanage as a little boy and was with us for about 2 years and then left us. And I really hadn't had any contact with him since that time, since late 80s. I haven't had any contact with him. And this year he came back to Padilla. And we found out that, not immediately, of course, after he left us, but shortly after he left us, he got involved in a ministry in central Mexico. And a very, very large ministry. It would be large in even terms of ministries here in the U.S. They just came to Padilla and held a crusade, a miracle crusade at Padilla. And this ministry, it's a Mexican ministry, this ministry for a 3-day crusade, they spent $20,000 American dollars to put on a 3-day crusade in Mexico, in Padilla. And had 2,500 people in attendance. And like I said, it's an entire Mexican team. And the head of their praise and worship team, guess who it was? A boy from our orphanage that grew up in our orphanage way back in the late 80s. And today, he's part of this huge ministry. In fact, they have their own ministry besides, because after they left us, he married a preacher. His wife was a preacher. And after they left us, they went down to the state of Chiapas, which is right along the Guatemalan border. And they had a meeting there. She was preaching to a group of women. There was about 700 women in attendance. And after they left there, they went to Monterrey. And then I think he's giving a reward for everything that he's doing today in the ministry, because it wouldn't have been possible. It wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for people like them that were supporting those kids. Does it make a difference? Yes, it makes a difference. We have another boy that grew up in the orphanage, one of Amaria's boys, that today is out planting new churches all over Mexico and doing a tremendous job. We have other, one of Ana Lu, I don't know if you remember Ana Lu, she's now a pastor's wife. And so, does it make a difference? You better believe it makes a difference. And I believe that everything that you're doing today is making a difference not only today, but also for generations to come. So we thank you so much for being a part of the ministry. We thank you so much for helping sponsor the ministry and praying for us on a regular basis. And we just want you to know how much we love you and how much we think about you. And so God bless you, Mom. Love you.